So I've always said it's really good to have a look at what other countries. I've just realised I'm fading into the background. It's always good to have a look at other countries' news about what they're saying about it, because again, it gives you a different viewpoint. And having different viewpoints about what different people are saying is always a good thing to have, because again, it widens your opinion base. And well, you might come to new conclusions or new ideas from those opinions that you hear. So today we're going to go over this piece that Vit Crew, I hope I'm saying that right, sent me. And recently, of course, with the war in Ukraine, in Finland, of course, Finland has a history, shall we say, of being invaded by Russia. Of course, the Winter War of, I believe it was 38 to 39, I think, if my history is correct there, I think off the top of my head. So they know full well what a Russian invasion can be like in their country. And there was a video piece I saw quite a while ago of Finns talking about that, and that is still something that sits in their living memory as part of their national story that they have. And I've said this before, that the Ukrainian war, the Russian invasion, this is going to form a huge part now of the Ukrainian identity. You've got, especially in like East Ukraine, which were very, very much like pro-Russia, that has completely turned on its head. You are seeing people now basically saying, I don't want to speak Russian anymore. I'm going to learn to speak Ukrainian properly after this, after what, what I thought were my brothers and sisters are now bombing me. How can they do this to us? I thought we were friends and brothers, but no, this has pushed many of these Eastern Ukrainians who were not overly like really pro-Russian, but it's pushed them away from aligning with Russia, which again feeds into this the whole thing of why on earth would Vladimir Putin do this, when that was obviously going to, of course, be one of the potential outcomes. Again, it doesn't make sense. But going back to Finland, because Finland has some serious questions to ask of itself now, because again, it shares a border with Russia, and Putin has referenced, again, parts of Finland that he considers to be, shall we say, part of the Russian Empire. That is what he has said that he wants to rebuild. And I think this has set a lot of Finns worrying, quite rightly so, because I would certainly be as well if I was Finnish, that probably we need to join NATO. And you've seen that approval rating now go above 50% and being talked about in Finland, as well as in Ireland as well. Ireland is currently having a conversation about should it abandon its neutrality that it's had for so long over this. And I think you're going to be seeing maybe even discussions in places like Austria as well. It wouldn't surprise me if that discussion is taking place there as well. So let's go diving into this article to find out more about what the Finnish perspective on this has always been, because it's always quite interesting, again, to get those different opinions. So before we go diving into this, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for supporting the channel that way. So I'm going to absolutely butcher the pronunciation of this paper, but this comes from the Elita Sanomat. I hope that's said-ish right. Of course, the title of the article, obviously this has been translated by Google. So this is known from the Russian forces normally close to Finland. The ability to threaten Finland has weakened. So Petr Tovik, I'm saying that right, the former chief intelligence of the General Staff of the Defense Forces, estimates that the war in Ukraine has significantly emptied the neighborhood's workshop. Local garrisons, with the exception of the 80th Artuk Motorized Infantry Brigade, have been relieved. Of all others, 2 battalion combat units per brigade have left for Ukraine. The command says that the garrisons are not empty, but shadows of the former. They're half empty. This is a little operational force. This is a war-ready force from when these from where these battle groups have left. Javi Lakelson, a researcher at the Foreign Policy Institute, says that the 200th Motorized Infantry Brigade in the Pasermo garrison has suffered heavy losses in Ukraine. And although Arctic and his units of other Vladimir Putin's Arctic brigades, especially in the 21st century, in a way, the occupation of the border areas of Finland is now even smaller than normal because those troops are now needed elsewhere, Larkin says. He says that the situation in Finland is not sustainable and safer just because of the depletion of these garrisons. Simply because Russia does not have the ability to wage 2 major wars at the same time, it has already been seen here in Ukraine when they are having trouble with this one. It is not just a question of whether they have any troops under the tree, but so long as the war is going on, Russia does not have the ability to threaten other states militarily. So that's again very, very interesting situation, because now you've got these garrisons again along the border of Finland have now been emptied because they need these troops in Ukraine because things are going so badly. And we have seen very recently the announcement that they were going to just focus on the Donbass region and try and, quote, liberate it. And I think, like, this is my opinion, but I think what we might see is going back to all my original. When we had that conversation with Ben, the conspiracy theorist, I pretty much said, look, I think Putin wants those 2 areas of eastern Ukraine. He'll turn them into independent republics. They probably won't be independent for long because there'll be a dodgy referendum, no doubt. And of course, I think he also wants the bottom part of the sea as well, down and around Mariupol, leading down towards Crimea. I highly suspect that is what Putin will ask for in the coming days. But the fact that you've got such a disorganized Russian military force, the question is, I think that Putin is just going to put so many troops on the ground, he's just going to say to the Ukrainians, well, come and take it. And it will turn into a forever war because Ukraine does not have the manpower as much as Russia is putting into it. And yes, they are doing very well, but that's because currently they are fighting defensively, and it's far easier to fight defensively than it is offensively. He's basically just going to say to them, come and take it. And ultimately, I have no idea about, again, the Ukrainians' ability to be able to go on the offensive, to be able to assault these things. But ultimately, I think that's what Putin's just going to do. He's just going to just flood those regions with troops, bunker them down once the Ukrainians have been fully pushed out, and just say, "This is mine now. Come and take it." And it will. I think we're eventually going to see a pretty much infinity war loop. Certainly for as long as Putin's in power, but neither is Zelensky, nor should the Ukrainians give up that land. That is, Ukrainian land. It is theirs. They've been invaded by a foreign power, and you've got to remember the civil war, the rebels of the separatists in Donetsk and Luhansk. Lots of them have said, yeah, we're not Ukrainians. We don't live here. We just came across from Russia. We're Russian soldiers. And you've also got to remember, up in Kharkiv, that was also a potential separatist point. But the locals in Kharkiv pushed them out and said, no, we're not interested in becoming a separatist state. So that may also be a potential target. But again, they're having huge problems. Again, trying to even take Kharkiv at the moment. Their only successes have really been down in the south. And even then, they haven't, shall we say, been overwhelming successes. They're still trying to take Mariupol. I probably think that they might achieve that this week. Just given the situation on the ground there, it doesn't look good. Yes, the Ukrainians are still fighting, but it just may be the case of it is a losing battle. They know that there's no way they can win, but how this plays out, how this goes in Ukraine, I've said before, you don't really know. But also, we've said this before, if you're Vladimir Putin and you want to weaken NATO, why would you do this, resort to this, which again has justified all these Eastern European countries joining NATO in the first place because they were so worried about European aggression? Not only that, but you've got Finland and even Switzerland, not Switzerland, well, we'll get to Switzerland in a moment. You've got Finland saying, okay, we might need to join NATO. You've got Switzerland, famous for its neutrality, very much siding against Russia in this. China is even saying, we're not even really sure if we're going to support Putin over this, given how bad that is going. But needless to say, we don't know when this is going to end, how it's going to end, or whatever may happen next week. Who knows? But needless to say, victory for Ukraine, my friends, as always. They are the victim here against a blatant act of Russian aggression, despite what other people like, George Galloway, might say about the Ukrainian people. They deserve peace and to have their own self-determination as a country. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.